welcome to another ohmTown Daily News Show. Today's show is for October 7th, 2022. There should be spooky music in the background. I monitor, but sometimes, maybe people don't hear it. But that's okay. Let's get into today's news. I don't really have much in terms of things that went on throughout the day that would lead to a discussion. So I'm just going to get straight to the news, make it an hour-long show, and let you get to your weekend. And if you show up tomorrow, if you're here in chat, if you listen to the VOD, if you download the podcast, if you find out about this show somewhere, thanks for listening to the first minute, at least. So stick around. We have a whole bunch of news. Actually, about 11 or 12 articles. I'm going to do something new today. Yesterday, I tried something different, but there wasn't anybody in my chat. So there were no votes, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm just going to submit the links, and then you can follow by going over to ohmtown.showbot.tv, which will have the links, and you can vote it up or vote it down. Well, you can vote for something. You can't vote it down. So let's get into it. The very first article for today is as Fed pushes to get wages down, study shows CEO pay has soared by 1,460% since 1978. It's actually been accelerating lately. I started reading a study. It's probably this one, like I usually don't do. I don't really read the articles beforehand, but I have some experience with all of the news to some degree, varying amounts of energy. And this says ordinary workers, by contrast, saw their pay rise just 18.1% in 43 years. Between 1971 and 2021. This might be the same study, by the way. I haven't gotten to it yet, but it might be the same study that also found the correlation that those who go to business school actually suppress wages of the enterprises they lead. I guess I'm an anomaly. I think that those who work in the business are the reason why the business succeeds and deserve to be well paid. Now, if I get somebody that is so new, they don't have any idea what they're doing, and I mold them like a mentor would into something that becomes an asset to the company beyond where they started as an asset to the company. You're an asset to the company when you are employed, and you're doing the job that you're being paid for, and you decide to go off on your own, yay you, but then you become competition or a partner. It really depends on what space you operate in, and if we can coexist. But obviously competition is what competition is. So even if I pay you enough so that you go out and strike it out on your own, it shouldn't impact me, right? As a business owner, as an employer, it shouldn't matter. And I should calculate into my processes, hey, at some point somebody's going to leave, and I better have somebody else there to take that person's place, because that's what happens. Sometimes people just get tired of it and want to go somewhere else. So be it. But that's really not how it seems to be when I have discussions with people, is let's pay as little as possible, and then nobody says really the quiet part out loud. Well, if I keep them struggling, they'll have to beg me for a job. I feel the power. I mean, it's really rather disgusting. But it's the way it seems to be. CEO pay has soared 1,460% since 1978, while worker pay has only gone up 18.1%. in the same 43 years. Let's go over to the article. Obviously, this is a commondreams.org article by Jake Johnson. And let's see here. Between 1978 and 1978 and 2021, according to new research from the Economic Policy Institute, CEO compensation at the 350 largest publicly traded U.S. companies rose by an inflation-adjusted 1,460%, far outstripping the 18.1% pay raise. This is perfect music for this. 18.1% pay increase. Geez. Come on, music. Give me a quiet time where I can talk. I like this music actually zinging some sound right at the right moments. Anyway, worker pay, again, 18.1% in 43 years. The trend of soaring CEO pay has continued during the coronavirus pandemic, which caused mass economic chaos and job loss among ordinary workers. API found that while millions lost jobs in the first year of the pandemic and suffered real wage declines due to inflation in the second year, CEOs realized compensation jumps of 30.3% between 2019 and 2021. By the way, the mantra is we have to pay big money to have strong C-suite. But all you worker bees can, you're screwed. Bye. Take a hike. We can replace you, but that C-suite, chef's kiss. Even though, well, we'll get into it as we go through here. But I read another report, and I'd have to go and hunt it down now. I was reading it late last night. That basically, anybody who goes to business school, the correlation is that you go to business school and you suppress wages in the enterprises you take the reins of. And like I said at the beginning of this, I must be an anomaly. I truly think that a business is as strong as the employees and culture within it, and therefore you have to treat people with respect and pay them what they're worth. And if my margin has to take a hit, so be it. Well, when Powell voices his desire to quote-unquote get wages down, as he did during a May press conference, he's not referring to the skyrocketing pay of top corporate executives or Wall Street bankers who have seen their bonuses surge by 1,743% since 1985. Yeah. I'm going to throw this article into chat. So something that you can do now is if you do exclamation point and then even you can type in a topic that you might be interested in. You can vote this up. You can type in exclamation point showbot and it'll give you a link to go over to ohmTown.showbot.tv and vote for articles if you like them. If you catch a phrase or you want to say something and you want to include it in the don't trust you with the topics, why not? Come on, Heavy. Welcome to the show. I saw somebody else come in and then they left, which is a bummer. I'd love to have people in here and get in a discussion with you, Heavy. That would be cool. Yeah, you can throw some topics my way. That would be great. The feeding habits of newborn woolly mammoths are something you and I would only be interested in. That's not necessarily true. I truly believe that if you are interested in something, passionate about it, and have some type of charisma, maybe that's why there aren't thousands of people in my chat and struggling to have a conversation because I have no charisma. I don't know. You're not really passionate, just curious. Curiosity is passion. I guess it's just kind of sedate, right? But you were curious enough and passionate enough to type in that phrase. Scientists are bringing back the woolly mammoth. I think it's the woolly mammoth that they're trying to bring back. We'll see if it happens. But nowadays, I'm going to be throwing in these URLs with that little exclamation point S, and then you can go over to ohmTown.showbot.tv and vote for the things that are interesting, at least for now. There might be more things that get added, more features, more polling. It really depends on how I want to deploy that feature. But yeah, so the C-suite is getting paid C-suite, while the working class is just getting marginalized more and more. Yeah, and there's Tim Cook looking off. Yeah, that's right, article. You know what's going on. You're saying the quiet part out loud there, Jake Johnson. Probably not going to get invited to the Apple CEO cookout. So the next article is over in the continuity report. I don't know if you watch She-Hulk or anything MCU, but She-Hulk, attorney at law case files. Jen and Daredevil make an explosive combination. If you haven't watched it, then it's actually quite fun. I like the show. A lot of people apparently don't. I'm not quite sure. Maybe they don't understand the culture of the She-Hulk comics, but regularly was or is humorous. Kind of just breaks the fourth wall all the time. A Man Without Fear finally makes his long-anticipated appearance in a team-up episode with implications for Jen and the MCU at large. Now, if you haven't seen last week's, then I might be spoilery, and this might be spoilery. So I don't know what to do. If you have something that you can clog up your ears, then go for it. Well, don't, no, because I don't want the liability of you actually doing anything. Well, anyway, so Daredevil shows up. Da-dun! Just do it. So Daredevil shows up. We know about it because we saw his helmet in the previous last week's, but this week, and he actually shows up. Everybody in the room was, what? They have great banter. They have great chemistry, like great chemistry on the screen. I mean, it's amazing. If DC could get that kind of chemistry, they would be actually competitive, but I just don't see DC doing anything beyond Batman. That said, the article itself, yeah, DC needs better writing. Like, overall, they just need better writing. It just seems like they're not able to transition the comics into a cinematic universe. But I think their writing sucks. And it seems like they come out of the gate really gangbusters in terms of the initial strike, at the iron. They really do get it. But then the people, and Heavy just said it, all their casting has worked to at least some degree. Right out of the gate, casting is awesome, and then something happens. It's like some chemical imbalance fires off, and poof, they go do wacky things, or the publicity of their relationship or their actions or something causes a poison pill to land in the water of DC, and you look back at it going, God, this is just disgustingly horrible. Everything about it is bad. You have to recast. And so everybody that's on the back end of the film has to edit like crazy. So yeah, they definitely don't transition well from the comics to what should be referred to as the DCU, just like the MCU. The DCU is just that, or I guess you could say DCCU. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, their cinematic universe just sucks. There's no connective tissue there. There's no chemistry there except for a sporadic Batman. So this article is over at Rotten Tomatoes. It's by Eric Amaya. And I thought that this was a really great episode with an updated suit to leapfrog and some really great chemistry prior to them doing some shenanigans. The writing is just impeccable. There's always something happening, even when it's a down period where you can recover from the previous action. Then they come out of the gate swinging again. I mean, it's just amazing. And they announce in the thing that the Sokovia Accords have been repealed during this period of She-Hulk. So where all this plays into the MCU, now you know. So first put into place during the events of Captain America Civil War, the Accords were meant to create oversight of the growing superhero community. You'll see what that means at the in this episode. So heavy, I'm going to try and limit the exposure of spoilers. I know that we've had a discussion previously where you said that you don't get things spoiled, really. I'm like that too. How have things been going? I haven't spoken to you in chat for a couple of days. So let me know how things have been the last couple of days. But for everybody else, I'll keep going. So in the US, it meant that a hero like Daredevil or Iron Man had to register their secret identity with the government. I'm not quite sure why Iron Man would, because he doesn't truly have any superpowers except for being brilliant, right? He's not as far as I know, a superhero. He just has great wealth and super intelligence. Daredevil, on the other hand, actually has a superhero talent, but maybe I've got it all wrong. Anyway, a disclosure like that was no big deal, but for Scott Lang, it could be ruinous. In the context of the film, Steve Rogers was more concerned about the government forcing heroes into military service, but the outing of secret identities also posed a threat to the often bullheaded Stark could not see. Well, I hope that you take care of that. Changing lifestyle and habits can be rough, particularly if we've gone a long period, 10 years to overcome, lifestyle and habits is sometimes approachable, depending on what it is. But like me, I've been sedentary for a long period, ever since I really started getting into tech more and more. So I have to do the same thing, change my lifestyle. When the doctor walks up and says, your warranty is up, you need to get healthy, it's so nebulous that you basically just start working out. And going for walks and giving up drinking whiskey. It's a lot of sugar. And alcohol, not to mention alcohol. Well, so this is the post-Sokovia Accords period. And off you go to the races. What I don't want to do is even really... Wow. What the heck, Heavy? Should I not ask while we're having a chat? Like, in chat, while I'm streaming. Maybe you don't want to disclose it. I have pulled the chat off of the screen. So you don't have to worry about that if you don't want to. Anyway, so that's the MCU and She-Hulk. Check it out. You won't regret it if you're listening to this via the podcast. This next article is in the Daily News Show, and I get into these discussions periodically with people who don't necessarily buy into what I am kind of pitching here, which is I think with great power and great wealth, the sociopathy of the person comes out more. And let's say 1 second. I need to, it's the X factor. I'm trying to remember the name of the chemical. Doggone it. That was given to, the chemistry that was given to Captain America. For whatever reason, I can't remember it right now, even though we were just talking about it. Anyway, I think that money and power draw out the innate character of the person, right? So, like, ask yourself, right now, you kind of care what society says about you. If you were to do something wrong, and you were to hurt the feelings of somebody around you, you may care. Some people may not publicly accept that you would care, and they may not be introspective enough to say that they care publicly, right? They've grown up with parents that didn't really awash them with emotion or empathy or compassion or understanding or anything like that, and you become distant. But maybe your significant other, maybe your children, if you hurt their feelings, you might care for them, right? Me, for instance, I'd hate to make people upset, but to stoke discussion, I may say something, and I do this regularly in crowds of people. I may say something to provoke a response, but it's framed within the, not only do I not believe this, but this is what other people do believe, and this is why I'm saying it that way. I frame it so that everybody understands fully the purpose of this. Well, in this particular instance, what I'm about to say really does rile some people up. Probably because it has a political element to it, because people are imparting that political element. But this is a sociological force here. For Ron DeSantis, quote, we're all in this together when it's convenient for him. This is a tried and true, researched and backed up by fact assertion here. Now, I don't know about Ron DeSantis. I'm not his psychiatrist or psychologist. I don't have psychological or psychiatric reports about their mental state. But a person who can say this, we're all in this together, while still telling the state of New York, screw you, you can't get emergency funds for the hurricane that hit you. It's sociopathic behavior. Lying when it's convenient, and being dismissive of people's emotions, and being having an air gap between the reality of your actions and the impact of those actions, and the truthfulness, the being cognizant of it. It's all sociopathic when you say, well, for me it's this way, and for you it's another way. So DeSantis is a secessionist of convenience. He scorned federal aid until it's needed for his state. And now he's all huggy, I need your money. And if you, as a person, a member of society, say, dude, you're kind of scummy about this. Why should anybody help you? Suddenly you are the bad guy because you're not just going along to get along, which is another sociological issue. The people of Florida should demand that someone in that position cares for the plurality of Floridians and even the rest of the country, because we are all in this together. Literally, we're in this together. And I had a discussion today, as a matter of fact, about something else that we'll get into, but let's keep on walking down this path. So this guy saying here in this picture, yeah, I'm the D-bag that said this. is Ron DeSantis, and he wants Hurricane Ian emergency funds, but he said no to Hurricane Sandy. The damage that was done in New York. So Leonard Pitts Jr. is the author of this over at commondreams.org. And it says, in 2013, when Hurricane Sandy devastated New Jersey, not New York, the then Florida Congressman piously declined to support a bill providing $9.7 billion in aid to those who had seen their homes damaged or destroyed. And I agree with you, Heavy. I don't care what he says. He's an ass. Let's help people. Agree. Thank you very much for being a compassionate human being. Quote, this is their quote. This is DeSantis's quote. I sympathize with the victims of Hurricane Sandy. Fiscally responsible, he said, it would not be to increase the debt without a decrease in spending. Well, these wingnut people think that suddenly the debt is important when it damages or harms the opportunities and capabilities of a democratic administration. But you can raise through the roof and spend all over the place and stuff courts and all of this stuff that you get gaslit about when it's a Republican administration. At least nowadays. There might have been more even-keeled Republican administrations in the past, but I think post-Reagan, including Reagan, I think things have gotten steadily more wingnut. But it's society that's making this happen, that's allowing this to happen. And I got into a discussion this morning about the fact that the person involved with the next article, which is Elon Musk, posted a graphic. This is why I don't like this kind of argument from DeSantis. Well, now we're all in it together, but when it's convenient and he can distance himself from other people, right, being the non-sociopathic person, suddenly it's, well, the plurality of the people that I am representing don't really care about New Jersey, so no, you can't have any support. I frame it this way because Elon Musk posted a message on Twitter saying, well, here is the 2013, I think it was, electoral map for Ukraine. And here was this area, massive area, that wanted to be Russian. And somebody else posted, well, no, you need the most current map for that, and that's the Zelensky map during their election of Zelensky, who ousted a fascist. And in that map, it does have two fringe in the Donbas region populations and in Crimea. And Crimea was basically annexed through force. A bunch of Russian people were pushed into Crimea. They held a vote, and suddenly, oh, I want to be Russian. That's not really how an election should have been handled, obviously, and the whole world watched it happen. And then now they're doing it again with the Donbas region. But then you have a wingnut like Elon that says, hey, this map says that all of these people want to be Russian. And that would be akin to us in the United States saying, well, Texas has a bunch of people who are really interested in secession from the United States, but really it's less than 50%. But even if it was, because there's a whole bunch of other Republicans that want to break away from the United States, let's just let Texas break off and be its own country. Oh, and there's a whole bunch of Hawaiian folks out there that don't want anything to do with the United States anymore. So let them be off on their own. Oh, and Alaska too. All right, they can be their own country because there's a plurality there that just want to be, off on their own. And now you have to look at all the rest of the states, because pretty much the Southwest is going to align with Mexico, and Louisiana and Tennessee is going to go French, and who else? Florida is going to break off and be, I don't know what, elderly, I don't know. But whatever, right? It's not a populist concept. We are a plurality of people. We are a melting pot of personalities. You support the ones that are being endangered, and when it's your turn, because the fit hits the shan in your state, everybody bands together to support you. But you can't do what you are doing, DeSantis. You can't just be populist when it's convenient, because it's sociopathic. We are more than just 50 plus 1. We are United States. That's how we got so big and popular, and, well, not popular. Now we're hated more than we're loved. But how we got so big was the plurality of people, and not to mention we started by abusing populations of people and still do to this day. Oh my gosh. Now I'm off the rails. So let's go to the Tesla one, right? So Tesla is about to send Pepsi a whole bunch of trucks. Tesla Incorporated has started production of its long-awaited all-electric semi-truck and will make its first deliveries to PepsiCo Incorporated in December, according to Elon Musk. It has to be Elon Musk that makes that announcement, by the way. Which is fine, I suppose. I wonder how much stimulus money and grant money. I'd have to look at the books. Do you think that they'll disclose that? Were they really paying $180,000? At the time of production was expected to begin in 2019, with a 500-mile range version starting at $180,000. And now in August, Musk has said that the 500-mile range truck would begin deliveries by the end of the year, to be followed by the Cybertruck. Yes, this fashion-forward Cybertruck pickup next year. Talk about money for money's sake. Tesla shares are down 6.32%, fallen 32% to date in 2022, outpacing the S&P decline of 21%. Largely probably because of the expected leverage of Tesla and SpaceX. SpaceX is kind of, well, it's a different entity, but it will collapse if Tesla collapses. If Tesla collapses, this Twitter thing will collapse. I think that Tesla is leveraged to be spent on his Tesla stuff will be spent on Twitter, because the Twitter thing is still on. $44 billion purchase. And I thought that this one was really interesting because I'm not a big fan of Jim Cramer. Every once in a while we have the same thing to say, and it kind of makes just thinking about it, makes my stomach a little more. I think that I'm more right than he is. He's apparently like 36% right. Jim Cramer says economic data can't capture one huge driver of inflation. I think that he's off base with this, even though he's on base with the statements. He's off base with the machinations of this. Again, stocks slumped on Thursday after a strong start to the week that fizzled out by Wednesday. This is in the Hedge Ideas channel. Just to catch everybody up on this week, and more specifically today's trading, the Dow Jones dropped another 630, S&P dropped 105, NASDAQ dropped 421. It actually dropped 420.91. Nice. Anyway, let's see. Bitcoin continues its kind of existence, and it dropped another 416 today, but it still trades right now. Gas prices went back up 3 cents roughly. And mortgage rates, if you are interested in getting a mortgage right now, you had better be filthy rich, because not even a perfect credit history will get you a good deal. You're going to have at least 20% on a $500,000 house, because the median price of a house in the United States is $490,000, plus whatever juice is on top of it, because you have to pay 20% plus 3 months worth of whatever your mortgage is. It's not cheap to buy a house. And now it is outrageously expensive to buy a house, and you probably wouldn't qualify for a nice mortgage. You have to be rich. It's a pro tip. You have to be rich. That said, so at a 700 for your credit score, you'll still have a 7% mortgage, which is almost, well, it's more than double a year ago. Well, Jim Cramer says, just so that I can get this in here, Jim Cramer says that a huge driver of inflation is the consumer's desire to spend money in the reopening economy. The reopening of the economy is not what's happening. Crystal Herr is the author of this article at cnbc.com. And they also say that investors are eyeing the non-farm payroll report release on Friday to gauge the size of the Federal Reserve's next interest rate. And the Federal Reserve is not eyeing payrolls. It's eyeing a whole lot more, including the PPI and the CPI and other indicators that only the Federal Reserve really knows. Because all the public-facing stuff is basically saying the economy, except for the rich, is poo. So Jim Cramer's argument is that, quote, they don't care about higher rates. They have savings because they did nothing for 2 years. Cramer's biggest worry right now is that the aggregate data can't capture the nature of this one-time only euphoria. So this belies the fact that 50% of the population is under 40, and they are dipping into their savings to pay for the cost of living increases that are born during the pandemic. And while there is a lot of money in savings right now based on M1 and various other the money data points in the Federal Reserve reporting, it isn't the young population, it isn't the sub 40-year-olds that are reserving all of their money. Why? Because they are spending all of their savings to exist in a time where rent is going up, food is going up, clothing is going up, gas is going up, school, if you have it, is suspended, but the expectation is that you're going to get an increase in your repayment rate because for 2 years it's been suspended, and people are going to be demanding that money back unless the feds bail out student loan system like they did with banks and other corporations over the last 40 years. It's happened again and again. So why doesn't it happen to the middle class? Well, because that's a threat to the rich. Deleting all of the student loan debt allows somebody to have the earning power and still move forward. And as taxpayers, I would rather have that money spent on deleting the student loan debt so that everybody is paying more taxes on more of their earnings, and it's going into the system that will eventually pay off with better schools, better roads, better oversight of abuse, better everything, really. And again, I'll say this again. There are reports out there that say that for every dollar that goes into the federal system, it produces $8 out worth of value. And pretty much every civil servant, there's always going to be bad people that are working in the federal government that aren't doing as much. But I promise you, there are more civil servants out there that are busting their hump at a fraction of the wage that they could make in the private sector. Again and again, I see it. Again and again. But it's self-assuring, really, when somebody can say to somebody else, well, the federal government's bad and wants to get you. No, federal government doesn't really care. The only time they care is when somebody storms the Capitol to try and overthrow the government. Pretty much. And then there's stupid long-term things like pot being illegal because business wanted it illegal so that cigarettes could be entrenched, and other things like cotton could be entrenched because weed grows like a weed and can be used for everything that cotton is, and weed can be used for everything that cigarettes are. And that is why it's illegal, because it's just as euphoric as beer. It's just as addictive as, if you let it, really, there's always compounding issues when you move from marijuana to something else. But the fact is that there's more context to this, and most people don't want to know and don't want to get into it and won't believe you when you start talking about it. So anyway, this is all connected through this associative thinking process, and some people don't really get it and might skip through all of this. But anyway, back to Jim Cramer. This isn't really about this one-time euphoria. This is about, he's ignorant of the fact that most people are struggling. It's only the rich that are making it through this with slightly lighter wallets. And says, while the surge in travel this summer showed the Americans are eager to engage in revenge travel, whatever that is, after COVID restrictions loosened, some are now experiencing recession fatigue, waning motivation to continue making smart financial choices to prepare for tough economic times ahead. No, everybody is suffering in the middle class, trying to pay for things that were 33% cheaper less than a year ago. Let's move on. Otherwise, I'll get hung up on this for a long time. This next article is in the Word in Tech, and it's Peloton CEO doesn't understand why people aren't happier that he laid off 500 people. The only people that are happy about it is the investors that are still going to get the runway running a little bit more, and the C-suite is going to be making bonuses because they're making smart decisions, terminating 500 people before Christmas. But in a memo sent to employees on Thursday afternoon, CEO Barry McCarthy explains that he thought a background discussion with the Wall Street Journal ahead of announcing the cuts would lead to a headline about Peloton's potential growth. He's apparently surprised to learn that the report accentuated the negative and said that the CEO is giving the unprofitable company about another 6 months. Yeah, I agree. I think that Peloton is riding into the ground. Their rowing machine is going to fall flat. It's expensive and bulky. And just, to me, it's dumb. The bike itself could be in gyms, and people pay a value add to sit there and ride a Peloton with an account, and you focus on the you focus on the account and not necessarily the bike. They had a 32% margin in the production of their bike and the sales, and it fell flat. They're trading at something like $8 now from a 52-week high of 100. I mean, talk about wetting the bed. It's amazing. And then to go out on the Wall Street Journal ahead of cuts and say, hey, look at us, we're firing 500 people. I mean, tone deaf. This is an article over at The Verge by Jay Peters. I love the stings from this song that's playing. I don't know if you can hear them really quietly in the background, I hope, and it's not overpowering what I'm saying, but I hear them louder here in my studio. So McCarthy replaced co-founder John Foley as CEO in February, and the company has made some drastic moves to try and turn things around, including shuttering retail stores. That was a smart move. The carbon footprint was too big. Multiple rounds of layoffs, which I think is dumb in a way. It extends the runway. It's probably prudent in a large corporation. But if they were functional at one point, these employees, then they should have been given an opportunity, sort of, to find something else to do within the company. I'm not sure what all can be done to save jobs, but I also believe that if it takes laying people off to keep a company running, that's one thing. But if it's just to extend it, 6 more months with the hope that some miraculous entity falls from the sky and gives Peloton a second breath, you're basically, well, the prognosis is not good for a company like that. One second. So I think what's going to end up happening is the stock is going to continue to go down. They're going to get acquired. If they get acquired, they might get acquired by a company like Apple. But I don't even see Apple finding the benefit in Peloton at this point, because I even said months ago, there's a slight chance that Apple might find value in this. But at this point, I don't see it happening ever. I think that they would rather create something of their own, if they even bother, because right now people are buying into the health and fitness tools like the watch and the phone and the health app, and they have a whole exercise regimen that's wrapped around Apple tools, so they don't necessarily need a $5,000 or a $3,000 bike. I think that they should buy Tonal from Tonal, like incorporate Tonal into Apple and go that route. Because a $5,000 bike is wild. $3,000 bike is wild, but I'll pay $3,000 for what amounts to a gym that bolts onto the wall, has zero. It doesn't take up any space on the floor. You can use the floor for whatever you want and then clear it out so that you can exercise, which is what you would do with a treadmill that folds up or an exercise bike. You move it out of the way and move it back into place. Some do. But man, I think Peloton is just crazy high price. And it's too big. I think it's starting to collapse under its own aspirations, and its stock certainly is. Okay, so let's move on to the next. I don't know why that scrolled. This next article is over in Warcrafters. It is about the Steam Deck. I'm not sure how many people really now. The hype is kind of meh around the Steam Deck, particularly the fact that it has a USB umbilical cord that wraps up behind it and plugs in at the top on a dock. Well, anyway, it says the Steam Deck and docking station are finally available without reservation. Like I said, the hype is gone. After a long delay, Valve has launched its official docking station for Steam Deck, and it looks like you won't have to wait long to get your hands on it. And even better news, the depressingly long wait times for ordering a Steam Deck may be coming to an end too. Valve announced that the Steam Deck will now be available for orders without needing a reservation. So yay, whoa, sorry. Yay to those who want a Steam Deck. You can get it now. George Jimenez is the author of this over at PC Gamer. And, okay, whatever video they had is marked as private, so that's not really selling me on the article. But you can go over to PC Gamer and read more about this. We all know about the Steam Deck now. We know about the dock. I basically think that it's a horrible design, and they need to redo not just the dock, but the Steam Deck itself and re-pivot where the docking port is. It should be seamless. It should be more like the Switch and every PC on the market that has a dock where it's frictionless. You just plug it into the dock and you're done. Whereas the Steam Deck has this little tail that comes around and plugs in on the top. It really irks me just thinking about it. Anyway, the bottom of this article, it says at the time of the writing that it seems like the 256 gigabyte Steam Deck is the only one you can order without reservation right now, with an expected delivery date of 1 to 2 weeks, and the 64 and 512 are currently taking reservations and will ship out at some time between late October, and late October is moving pretty fast, and December. Anyway, let's move on. I won't stick long with this one, but look, hey, guess what? There's another Elon Musk article. You know, I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment. Twitter's raised questions about how Elon Musk plans to finance his $44 billion takeover. I would be suspect too, but it wouldn't really matter. Everybody's voted yes. Elon Musk says Twitter won't take yes for an answer, but that's not really what Twitter is talking about. Twitter has reservations about how it's being sourced, and has said as much, right? Twitter said it did not trust the offer would come through. So they aren't going to put a pause on their litigation to force Musk to keep moving forward. Present the money, cut the check, get it done, transfer the authority of ownership over to you, and let the board and the stakeholders of Twitter bow out at the $54 price, or we will keep on moving towards the litigation. So it says Mr. Musk said litigation was no longer necessary after he said in a surprise move this week that he was prepared to go forward with the original takeover plan pending receipt of the financing and an end to the legal battle. But that is not adequate. Twitter wants the money and then they will end the litigation. But Musk wants to stop the litigation, which means for them to pause it and then refile is a delay that Twitter and the stakeholders do not want to wait for. They don't want to have to refire this litigation and argue it again. So they're telling the lawyers in the Chancery Court in Delaware, you got to keep on moving forward. So in its own filing for the Delaware Chancery Court on Thursday, Twitter said that it opposed suspending litigation, calling such a move an invitation to further mischief and delay, which is exactly what I just said. I don't read these articles prior to the show. I just know that these are the shenanigans that, well, some people will take. And I'm watching a case right now where this guy is representing himself and is so much a danger to himself that he's actually telling his mom that he plans on delaying the court case as much as possible. And I'm not sure how he was allowed to represent himself, but that's what this really amounts to, is pause, delay. Then something will happen with the funding, and then this, and then that. Well, if you want it, then cut the damn check and get it done, Musk. Get it done. And we'll watch as Tesla stock implodes. Because if he makes it private and supposedly makes these changes, it's going to turn into one of those forums where it's a niche forum and not a plurality of people that feel that they are able to say whatever they want to say. The only ones that feel like they can't say whatever they want to say on Twitter are wingnuts. No, you can't, just like, yelling fire in a movie theater, you can't sit there and say, yes, pour salt in your eyes. Sorry, that's a Kids in the Hall quote from way back. But you can't say something that is patently wrong and people are harmed by it. When the science says that taking this medication means that you are still going to suffer from the COVID vaccine, and everybody follows that because you said it, not because science said it and it's backed up by fact, but because you are a person that they idolize for whatever wingnut reason, it is a matter of the state to stop that from happening because the state has its citizens in its best interest. That is really the ethics of it. What people believe is another animal, but the state is set up to protect the citizenry from harm. Well, let's see. Will it get paused for a long term? Will Twitter get purchased? Will it close down in terms of what goes on within it? But once it's privatized, there's zero oversight until it goes public again. We'll see what happens. Got to keep watching this, folks. The next article is in The Word in Tech. Hacker steals $570 million of crypto tokens from Binance BNB chain. It's been a rough year for cryptocurrency, and things are not looking any better after over $500 million of cryptocurrency tokens were stolen from Binance on Thursday night. The exploit hit the Binance bridge, a cross-chain bridge that allows for the transfer of tokens between two related blockchains operated by Binance Cryptocurrency Exchange and collectively known as the BNB chain. According to well-known smart contract analyst Sam CZ Sun, the attacker was able to forge transactions that allowed them to withdraw 2 million BNB tokens from the bridge. By the way, this forged transactions, basically they've modified the contract to self-authorize. This has happened in the past several times now, where that transaction document basically says, yeah, go ahead. And that is a serious problem with crypto and these bridges in particular. Bitcoin would be fine by itself, but with all of this other stuff tacked on, it's just like infrastructure computing. We have a history of sensors and relays, switches, pumps, and all kinds of stuff. I don't want to get too into the weeds about this, but we have a history, and most countries do, of having all of this infrastructure stuff that was never intended to be connected to the internet, and then we connect it to the internet. And then we're surprised when somebody hacks it, and none of it has security adequate with what it is. This is the same way. By the way, all of this wealth is not protected by insurance. So if somebody lost their life savings, they have lost it. You're not going to get it back unless somebody brags about it and just tries to say, look what I did. But then they'll just be destroyed in court. Corin Faith is the author of this over at TheVerge.com. And really, they might go into some other stuff regarding this, but they always load the second half of the page, which is, look at all of this stuff. I'm going to scroll. Look at all this stuff that they tack on to the bottom of their page after the article. Does anybody scroll through this except for somebody who's streaming and wondering what the hell all of this is? No, we come for an article, for crying out loud. Anyway, so in recent years, cross-chain bridges have become the most common site of ultra-high value hacks, partly because they store very large sums of cryptocurrency at any given time. Yeah, it's for people to shift it around. And this is part of the problem. This is why there's going to be oversight at the federal level of crypto in the United States, and it's coming soon. Keep an eye out. So Okay, and the last article for today, and it's probably going to be the last article about this particular topic, unless something really miraculous happens, is the NYU chemistry students shouldn't have needed that petition. So there have been several discussions about this chemistry professor that had retired from academia but returned as an instructor at NYU and had basically a gatekeeper course called organic chemistry. I refer to them as gatekeeper courses. This is a high stakes weed out class that it's called in this article, are relics of an age when college students were much more uniformly privileged. But I think that this is something different. Now, I understand what they are saying, but to me, it's something different. And I'll get into it as we go through this little article. So this article is a guest essay by Jessica Calarco. Dr. Calarco is a professor of sociology at Indiana University. She's the author of 2 books in social class and inequalities in schooling. What I call this type of reporting, this type of article, this type of writing, when you are a hammer, all you see are nails. And that's why my subject matter expertise spans multiple fields. So I may not be a doctor, I may not have published books. To me, that I'm considering it, but at this point, when you're in academia and you're producing books and it might be required reading for your classes, it's so self-indulgent. It's like Scrooge McDuck swimming around in gold coins that he made because that's the only way he could verify that the gold is the right quality. Anyway, New York professor fired Professor Maitland Jones Jr. this summer after 82 out of 350 students in his organic chemistry class signed a petition expressing concern about the effectiveness of Dr. Jones's teaching. Well, it wasn't about it. In another article, another opinion piece, that writer kind of, I think, hit the nail on the head, which was there was a stink made. New York University didn't need this professor. This professor might be high friction, high cost. And while they were an asset to the enterprise, they weren't needed. And so let's lower the bar. Let's make it so that more people pass and thus are really happy and thus willing to pay. They stay in school. They don't get gatekept and forced out of the domain that they're interested in. And who knows? Maybe you can be a worker or be within organic chemistry in a field of your choosing in an enterprise that appreciates whatever it is that you have to offer. That's kind of how employment works anyway, right? So why do this gatekeeping? Well, here the person is saying, well, everybody in this bygone age that I'm about to talk about was from a better place of privilege, and therefore it has been demonstrated. And I don't know if that's where they're going to go with this, but the butt of this is what she said was, yeah, all of these students are in here, but for an earlier period, everybody was of privilege. Well, now it's not so much. NYU students' willingness to challenge this kind of pedagogical gatekeeping is a sign of how power dynamics are shifting at colleges and universities in the United States. To some degree, that shift reflects a rising sense of entitlement on the part of students and their parents, but that's not the only factor at play. Another is the increasing diversity of student bodies, which casts many higher education traditions in a new light. Correct. So one of those traditions is the weed out mentality, courses that are designed to distinguish between serious and unserious students. Yes, that's the same thing as gatekeeping. It has become clear, often do a better job of distinguishing between students who have an ample resource and those who don't. I have spoken about it in previous streams. When you come from privilege, where you don't have to worry about where your protection is, where your food is, where your social dynamics are, and you can study, and it's respected by your peers and by your family, and essentially you don't have any social stressors of the kind that would pull you away from your studies, other than, hey, let's go party. And if you have a little bit of self-control, you can tell somebody, I'd rather study, or to put it softer on, the social side, sorry, I'm busy, or I'm gonna stay home with the family, or whatever. Well, we know that when you have to struggle to figure out your life stability, you can't excel in school. That's why Ivy League schools have such great outcomes, and the social networking there is superior, and the whole dynamic is seen as better. And the people that could excel outside of these schools are largely marginalized in their performance because of various factors. I'll just leave it at that. Well, that's what this person is saying. That's what let me back up. Dr. Calarco is saying is that, well, students today have a whole lot of other things going on right now, and these gatekeeping things don't really mean much. I have a conflict in this, in the fact that the students rallied together to get somebody fired, when it really should have been a department chair or discussions en masse, like bringing it before the dean and not pushing it further because of these high stakes elements. Unless you are doing brain surgery, which might go along with organic chemistry. I mean, these are supposed to be med students. You have the world at your fingertips. You can Google anything. You could do research for anything. It doesn't all have to be in your head to pass a test. You need to be able to get the reference material, but people don't just get the reference material, and the tests aren't written in such a way so that you can have some diatribe. They want very succinct answers that are pushing you to remember everything. And when you can't remember everything, suddenly you don't have the right stuff. But that's not the world we live in. Unless somebody has been a surgeon for years and years and years, even they brush up on their technique. I know surgeons, and surgeons would sit there and I know one in particular that gave a lot of discussion to me about how he would go to slaughterhouses and get like legs from cows, or other animals, like, whatever that the farm had, so that they could do surgery, and learn surgery, because you can't always learn your surgery on a human being, but the joints are largely the same. The mechanics of it are. So that's how he learned how to do surgery. And then when he could do surgery on a human, then he did surgery on a human. But that's the type of dedication that was old school. Now you can still do it, and you would be, I think, a better surgeon. But these people are talking about a high stakes written test, not boots on the ground surgery. So why was it such an old school gatekeeping technique, other than to try and force out people who didn't meet that particular type of test requirement? So it says changing institutions isn't easy, but abandoning weed out culture could have measurable benefits for students and for society as a whole. The nation is currently facing a shortage of doctors, especially Black and Latino doctors, and research suggests that academic gatekeeping is a big reason. I've seen it. The weed out approach used in fields like chemistry, biology, engineering, and other STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, exacerbates inequalities in student performance and discourages students from completing STEM majors and pursuing opportunities like graduate and medical school. That was the purpose of this class. This person felt that they were the subject matter expert at the level that could dictate your career. And it was largely made that way by the institution. So I guess to rectify that situation, they nixed the problem. And so be it. It's up to that school. Now, all of those people who now pass this organic chemistry and go on, I would love to know a longitudinal study to see the level of success in the field, and if firing this person actually made a difference in the total outcome, or if it basically just hobbled this one professor. And professionally, the reputation of the school will suffer when people make it past this gatekeeper and then wet the bed out in the field after they're hired, because there is no way to demonstrate except going through med school. And if they get into med school and then have to do an 18-hour stint of a rotation and they screw up because they failed organic chemistry when they took it with the gatekeeper, and then when they fire the gatekeeper and the person passes the test anyway because, well, you know, he put his name or she put his name or they put their name on the paper and now you pass. Now they're in the rotation in med school and a question from organic chemistry pops up and they don't know one way or another. It's going to come out. And I've said this to people having discussions about professional requirements in various domains. If a person is going to cheat, they're going to cheat. Is it up to the school to stop the cheating? Yeah, let's put some barriers up. But a cheater is going to cheat. I've been in a testing facility and I witnessed someone cheating. I mean, I saw them, and it starts out with heavy breathing and panting like they're having some issue. And they know that they're going to get caught cheating. And so they cheat and they get caught. But ultimately, that's one person that failed at it. Others are going to make it by. You have to change the dynamic to not make it high stakes, but make it a sustained assessment process so that you know what this person is capable of, well beyond rote memorization that leads to success or failure at the one test or two test limit in the curriculum. That's how you fix this problem. Not just by having a high stakes test where people largely don't have the ability to memorize everything, or they stress about testing. But I guess, if you're going to gatekeep, you gatekeep regardless. At any rate, that's the end of the show. And I actually have this little voting thing connected to the chat now, where if you go to ohmTown.showbot.tv, I'm going to leave all of this in, by the way. You can vote on the articles that you think are neat. And like I said earlier, I might change this up a little bit. You can actually put submissions in there, exclamation point S, and then whatever. You just type in this is a title and it'll get submitted. And then when you go to Showbot, you can vote on what you find interesting. Now, I'm going to leave it up until the next show. I will post this show over to YouTube pretty soon. And then for the next 23 hours or so, I'll leave the election open for the topics that you find interesting. And I think maybe if people find this, hey, guess what? Maybe we can have something else to talk about for a little bit. At any rate, I am hoping to, I'm going to front load this. I am hoping to expand the number of hours that I stream, taking it to 2 hours, I'd say, here pretty soon. It really depends on what's going on in the world around me. I'm still mayor of ohmTown, and ohmTown is sometimes a hot mess. So I've got 6 projects that are underway for my business side of things, but I want to be here. So get word out, folks. If you hear about this, please go out and find some people off the streets and say, hey, you got to go stop by ohmTown. I don't know what's going to work. Anyway, you're awesome. See you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Bye-bye.